For as much as Pokemon is trying to shake up the formula, there is one thing that I hope they never change. This is the Console Cameo. To some, it's a fun little nod, to others, it's a corny corporate backpat, and in some cases, it's like the lightest way you could ever break the fourth wall. It is a general catch-all for when video game consoles make an appearance in a video game. On the surface, that seems about as interesting as a TV appearing in a TV show, but with consoles, it's a little different. Setting aside for a moment the fact that video games tend to take place in worlds generally understood to be separate from our own, consoles and their controllers are iconic by design. The way they look does a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to advertising themselves to a particular audience, and because of that, even across hardware revisions, their look is pretty standardized. I mean, you know a Wii when you see one. It is a little dismissive to call all of these advertisements. After all, if these are product placements, they kind of do a poor job of advertising a product. Double Dare for the NES was set in the then present day, and one of the prizes, alongside a holiday and some camping gear, was an NES, which is inherently a bad prize given the one thing you can assume about the player of that game. They already have an NES. So it might seem as easy as dragging Wii.obj into your Elebits executable, but there's a mile of distance between dusty Last of Us PS3 and backseat rear-view mirror Gran Turismo 5 PS3. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet begin, as is tradition, with a brazen title case name drop of the brand new Nintendo Switch model in your bedroom, and I hope they never change that. Later, in Penny's dorm room, there's a magazine tucked down below eye level with a GameCube on it. There's not even a sign pointing to it. The less you try to show off how cool your console is, the better. If I notice your console, I already know exactly how cool I think it is. Nintendo consoles might come to mind as the worst offenders when it comes to signposting cameos like this, but counterpoint, Tales of Symphonia GameCube. This thing really has no reason at all to be here. It's a random area pretty deep into the game, there's no mention of it, and the fact that it's a GameCube isn't really relevant to the room at all. Like, why is it there? What's the point? That doesn't matter. Floating GameCube. This can come in the form of hiding it away, like how in Halo Infinite there's an Xbox tucked up and away inside of a wall, but I think hiding it away like this makes it feel more like an Easter egg, rather than a fun console appearance. The main menu of Gotcha Force has a GameCube, it's just kinda there. Sure, it's under a menu item, but it doesn't seem like you're interacting with the GameCube in order to open that menu item. You're just interacting with the text of the interface. It's not bad. I think it serves as a good reference point, good neutral ground. Ape Escape 2, on the other hand, has a walk-in menu with a PS2 sitting on the table that you use to save the game. It's really not all that common for there to be any way to interact with consoles in a more literal understanding, so it might be worth expanding interactivity to involvement, like this plot-relevant camera monitor in Danganronpa 2 that looks a lot like a PSP Go. Maybe not interaction exactly, but definitely involvement. In Beautiful Katamari, there are a bunch of Xbox 360s and controllers to pick up in one of the stages. You're not interacting with them in the normal way you'd interact with a video game console, but they are brought into a role where you can interact with them. On the extreme of this, you have the original Animal Crossing on the GameCube. In it, you get these NES items featuring a handful of games, and interacting with them pulls up an NES emulator. Even the title drop OLED Switch has a little interactivity. The Joy-Con colors change to match whatever Joy-Cons you're using. Pokemon also has different designs of Pokédexes for each mainline entry, designed to look like the handheld that they appeared on, a dual-screen Pokédex for the Nintendo DS, or a widescreen Game Boy Advance-esque Pokédex in Ruby and Sapphire. And then they started looking like smartphones, which accidentally became like a half console cameo for Pokemon Go and Pokemon Masters EX. You interact with those pretty much constantly, even if they are a little bit abstracted. Some of the most memorable Nintendo console cameos are this way, like the Tingle Tuner. It's not exactly a Game Boy Advance, but that's definitely a Game Boy Advance. It's just been abstracted and turned into an item. an item that's used to connect to your Game Boy Advance. Pokemon has a couple of these. The Pokédexes are a great example, but these sorts of things pop up for whenever a remake comes out on a console lacking a feature required for the original in some way, like Game Boy Link cables to evolve Pokemon in Legends Arceus, which previously evolved through trading. In Mario Sunshine, the layout of Serena Beach is in the shape of a GameCube controller, which you would never really see in one go. And take a look at this DS. Look how happy they are about this DS. The Sheikah Slate in Breath of the Wild is a clever way to abstract the Wii U gamepad enough to still be a shorthand for the real Wii U gamepad, but still have it fit within the world of Hyrule. It is not surprising to find a PS3 in a living room in a modern home. I guess it's not expected to be there, but it's certainly not surprising. Travis Touchdown has a Nintendo 64. Okay, well now we're in the ballpark where a fictional world has non-fictional proper nouns. This is definitely a big scale. Like, in Persona 5, it's maybe kind of understandable that the PlayStation Vita exists in this semi-realistic but ultra-stylized world, but there's just no reason for Donkey Kong to have a 3DS. The gang and Sly Cooper have a PlayStation 1, which, yeah, I guess it's not set in the past, right? God of War 3 has a rhythm game with in-world PlayStation face buttons. Now's the part where I should probably mention in-game characters speaking controller buttons out loud.
Alto, tenor, tenor, alto.
Moving right along. Okay, I think it's clear that these are different and don't count. Wii safety screens don't count as console cameos. These are strictly functional usages of console elements. Bentley isn't saying those tutorial prompts in-universe for Sly. He's saying it like between the lines of the fourth wall for us. In Pokemon Red, though, you can talk to some NPCs who are playing Pokemon Red. Could they walk around in Pokemon Red and talk to themselves? Is it like a slightly altered version where everything's the same, but they're not in it? Are the Pokemon games real in Pokemon? There are also, of course, console cameos that don't really insinuate anything about the world. Take Pushmo. And I don't think you're supposed to really think that an NES controller would not only make a good snowboard in 1080 Avalanche, but also that Nintendo ever intended to make a very, very large Nintendo controller for use as a snowboard. And maybe it's because the game isn't exactly trying to create a consistent world for itself, and it's not really tied to our world, but this feels a lot less like an indication of the in-game existence of Nintendo, and more just that the developers wanted to put a cool thing in their cool game. Could that be a way to describe every single one of these? Yes. So what happens when you take all of these, the bold and the understated, the clever and the simple, and mash them together into one console experience? Astro's Playroom is a 3D platformer, and in the wise old words of early Xbox game YouTuber Hova, everyone has Astro's Playroom. It comes free with your PlayStation 5. In one breath, Astro's Playroom features a UMD with disc art for a semi-obscure PSP game reimagined in the world of Astro's Playroom, and then dare to base an entire world on how well the PlayStation 5 is able to cool itself off. Around every corner and placed slightly off every ledge is every conceivable PlayStation property. Crash Bandicoot, Parappa the Rapper, iToy, and PlayStation 2 disc. Even the T-Rex from the first ever PlayStation's demo disc makes a headlining appearance in the game's final act. Some of the concept art made it seem like maybe there'd be more of a gameplay focus on the character cameos, which, damn, that would have been really cool. As it stands though, the characters do have these nice fun little vignettes mirroring stuff they do on their home turf. It feels like in a different world, these would have leaned even more into the Lego Star Wars style treatment of licensed properties. And for what it's worth, even the cooling level has some really incredible art direction. Like, come on, I want to live here. At the very least, it's a nice sign that Sony might be taking more of a fun approach to their hardware history. I wish Microsoft would take notes. They have maybe the craziest, hardest design ever with the original Xbox, and there's like 3 cases of Xbox console cameos. So if Nintendo is the king of console cameos, and Sony is the younger, chiller prince of console cameos, then it's the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast has almost had a second life, pulled from the dead as a console to use as a cameo for Sega. Most recently as a part of a whole line of Sega characters in Super Monkey Ball, but this goes deep. Naturally, it appears in Sega's flagship franchise, in cutscenes and as parts of a boss in Sonic Adventure, and in Sonic All-Stars Racing, where you can go win all of your races as a Dreamcast VMU. The VMU here probably most resembles Sega's equivalent of Nintendo's Game Boy Advance inspired items. In the Chow Gardens in Sonic Adventure 2, there's a mechanic in which you can transfer a Chow onto your VMU to take around, kind of like a proto-Pokewalker. Like, this just seems like something Nintendo would be doing. Well, when the game was ported off the Dreamcast after the Dreamcast was discontinued, they removed it. They removed the VMU. They removed the VMU and replaced it with a Game Boy Advance. The Dreamcast controller, VMU and all, appears in the music video for Controller in Hatsune Miku Project Diva, or in Phantasy Star, where the Dreamcast appears as a pet and as a weapon, alongside chows, a magazine, and literally just a suitcase of money. Man, not enough people talk about Phantasy Star. Shoutouts to Blackjack. That game rules. Sakura Wars is a series of half-visual novel, half-tactical RPG games initially developed by Sega, which eventually spun off into music albums, anime seasons, stage plays, merchandise, and restaurant events. Essentially, it's multimedia franchise-ified Fire Emblem. And in one of its mobile game spin-offs, namely a 2020 Japan-exclusive gacha game, one of the character's ultimate attacks features the Dreamcast UI. Need I say more? Okay, I will. It's backpacks in the Typing of the Dead. It's backpacks in Virtua Fighter 5. It's the engine on the backpacks in Virtua Line. It appears in tall stacks behind a Sega director in a promotional video for Shenmue. And it's even in the logo stinger for a random 2000s game developer called High Voltage Software, who didn't even make games for the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast isn't somehow definitively the most ever referenced console, that's probably the Game Boy, and to be fair, Sega's other consoles appear really often too, but maybe in relation to its low market share, or maybe since it's the last Sega console, or maybe just because the design of it is so... The Dreamcast just seems to be the most noticeable. Sega has a tendency to treat their consoles almost as mascots, alongside Sonic and Metal Sonic, and honestly, I think that's appropriate given how much character the thing has. Sure, Nintendo seems to have a similar affection for showing off their old consoles, but every time the Virtual Boy is mentioned, for some reason it has to be accompanied by a tongue-in-cheek remark about how bad it was. But it seems like Sega is really proud of its time in the console market, even if it did end up in failure. There's an RPG for the Dreamcast called Segagaga, which is sort of a story for another time, but it's essentially a comedic RPG about developing games involving a laundry list of Sega properties, industry parodies, and self-reflections, all surrounding the company's attempts in 2025 to win back the console market. In the 2 years between when its development started and it was released exclusively through the Sega Direct store, the situation with Sega's console market share had become a bit more dire. The PlayStation 2 was released. And so it sort of became its own self-fulfilling prophecy, a swan song of the Dreamcast's lineup, a final chapter in the console era at Sega. And what better way, what more Sega-appropriate way to close out that chapter than by having you shoot down Sega's past consoles? So if Nintendo is the king, then Sega's like your cool uncle. I mean, what other company is gonna let you kill their consoles? Has it dawned on you yet that Rob is a console cameo? Yeah, it's kind of evolved into an entirely different thing now, but in case you aren't always thinking about it, Rob is based off of a peripheral for the NES. And for those of you who don't think peripherals count as console cameos, controllers are peripherals. For what it's worth, Sony also let you kill a PlayStation controller in Star Ocean 2, so maybe that's not exactly the perfect litmus test for chill console cameo policy. Or maybe they didn't authorize that one. I don't know. That's a whole other aspect here that would be impossible to validate. And I don't want to give the wrong impression here. Even the most obtrusive, simple console cameos can be great. I mean, how else are Pokemon games gonna start? I think it's important to remember that for a good chunk of these, a big part of the motivation is that the company gets a couple brownie points and free marketing, but some of them really do feel like genuine, surprising, exciting little appearances. In reality, I think most of them are a little column A, a little column B, and is that so much of a bad thing? I think the real nuanced take here is that, yeah, most of these are some sort of product placement by a company that is not your friend, but that doesn't prevent it from being cool enough to leave an impact. If you're itching for some more of these, there's a great collection of them I'll link in the description. This isn't even touching on Hyperdimension Neptunia, which is a game where a lot of the characters are designed around consoles, which is a fact completely eclipsed by an actual canonical event called the Console Wars. Like, it's an entire RPG franchise based on the general concept of the Console Wars. Like, damn, that's so anime.